If you look forward to the Israel Adesanya vs Paulo Costa fight, then be sure to show this by smashing the like button.
The Last Stylebender Israel Adesanya! Paulo The Eraser Costa!
Welcome back everybody to Keenan K TV. In today's video, we will be going over the Israel Adesanya vs Paulo Costa fight, but mainly in this video, go over why Israel Adesanya will be able to beat Paulo The Eraser Costa. I have already made a video where I talked about why Paulo Costa can defeat Israel Adesanya, so be sure to check that one out with the link in the description below. And now with that being said, let's jump right into the video. It has been very interesting to see how much of the narrative has changed surrounding this fight. Initially, when Israel Adesanya knocked out Robert Whittaker, the immediate response to a Paulo Costa vs Israel fight was just that Israel would go in there and school Costa just the same way he schooled Robert Whittaker. And you wouldn't be faulted for believing that. But the more time passes by and the more people forget about that victory, the more people start to doubt the ability of Israel Adesanya. And in this video, we will be taking a closer look at why exactly it is that Israel Adesanya is the current UFC middleweight champion, and also why he could beat Paulo Costa. Starting off with Adesanya's size. Going into this fight, Paulo Costa is just having all the limelight when it comes to pure physicality, size and weight, and rightfully so. The man is very big for the weight division. However though, when you take a look at Adesanya's measurements, he's by no means a small middleweight, even though he's on the thinner side, which is no surprise when you're 6'4" with an 80-inch reach at the 185-pound division. But with all of that comes a lot of problems. Now, when you take a closer look at the guys that Paulo Costa has defeated, rarely has he ever faced somebody who was as tall and rangy as Adesanya. For example, Uriah Hall. He has the same reach as Adesanya, 80 inches, but he just happens to be 4 inches shorter, which is pretty big. He was as tall as Paulo Costa, but with a longer reach. And aside from that, he faced fighters like Johnny Hendricks who were 5'9", coming up from the welterweight division, or somebody like Yoel Romero who is as tall as him and about the same reach. So all in all, he has either faced fighters who were as tall as him or shorter, but never has he faced somebody who was taller than him. And come fight night, that will be a big problem because he's not just fighting a regular tall fighter, he is fighting a fighter who knows how to fight tall and rangy, and that is a very big difference between all of these opponents he has previously faced. Going into a fight with Israel Adesanya, momentum will be key. Israel Adesanya, he has always been the fighter who has been able to control the pace of every single fight he has been in. And the reason why all of this happens is not a surprise. His ability to utilize his size, height and reach is one of the biggest barriers opponents have to get through before fighting their fight. Now what that really means is that they all just get zoned out. And against somebody like Paulo Costa, who happens to be 6 foot, however, with a 72-inch reach, 72 you people. This is not a very long reach to have, especially for a fighter who happens to fight at the middleweight division. For example, Conor McGregor has a longer reach than Paulo Costa. Conor McGregor has a 74-inch reach. Or how about Kevin Lee, who has a 77-inch reach? These fighters all have longer reaches than Paulo Costa. So going into a fight with somebody who has 8 inches in reach advantage over you, 4 inches in height, you best believe Adesanya will be the fighter who will be first in control of the range, pace, and tempo by utilizing his movement, feints, long-reaching jabs, long-reaching kicks. The momentum will be controlled by Adesanya, and that is the biggest advantage Paulo Costa has always had over all of his opponents. He has always been the fighter who happens to come forward, make the fight his fight, and control the pace, tempo, and put the fight in a certain momentum his opponents can't keep up with. The most important part of this fight for Adesanya's victory will come down to his footwork. Adesanya has always been a very light, outside moving fighter, and when you have an opponent like Paulo Costa who will come after you, you will have no problems utilizing that footwork advantage you've always had over all of your opponents to a greater extent. Now, I'm not saying that he will be able to zone out Paulo Costa, but he will be the only fighter currently in the middleweight division who can do just that. He is literally the only guy who can do it and do it the best. And so when Paulo Costa is trying to come forward, pop out his jab, he will be faced with Adesanya's long reach, long limbs, and long range. Now, the problem with Adesanya is not only that, he's also presenting different looks at you. As soon as Israel Adesanya switches to southpaw, he will have a greater control of the boxing range, because Paulo Costa's best weapons just happen to be his hooks on the inside. He has never been a clean 1-2 knockout artist. He has always got most of his damage in close in the pocket. And so by controlling all of that range, a moving southpaw Adesanya will be the greatest trouble Paulo Costa has. However, to Paulo Costa's credit, he's not just a boxer. He has terrific leg kicks and body kicks, and I am sure as soon as Israel Adesanya will switch to southpaw, those big kicks will come at him, and that is exactly why this is a fight. Though Adesanya has answers to Paulo Costa has answers to Israel Adesanya. The most important part of fighting will always come down to who will have the more answers, who will be more prepared, who is smarter inside that octagon. When it comes to fight IQ in the middleweight division, it seems to be pretty hard to even point out anybody else other than Israel Adesanya who totally has that down. I mean, just take a look at his fight with Yoel Romero. It may not be an entertaining fight, but he knew that it didn't have to be entertaining for him to beat him, because he was able to beat Yoel Romero comfortably from a comfortable range, where Yoel Romero simply had no other option but to accept the losing exchanges. Because Yoel Romero had no other way to get in, he couldn't figure out another way to get in, and as a result, he lost to the smarter man. And so with everything that Israel Adesanya has in his arsenal, to his knees, to his elbows, to his feintings, stance switching, you will have to believe that at some point, the tendencies that Paulo Costa has of immediately wanting to get the fight on will result in many mistakes Paulo Costa will not be prepared for, and all of those mistakes will be countered. That is just the nature of Israel Adesanya. For example, when, let's just say, Paulo Costa is in the boxing range and comes forward with Adesanya backing up, Adesanya's head movement of pulling back and swinging under the shots and exiting away from the power hand will come in handy. And I believe with Adesanya knowing how to defend those powerful hooks, not only will have an exit out, but also an opportunity to counter. And those sneaky counters will exactly be the deciding factor of slowing down a fighter like Paulo Costa, and that is all he needs. As soon as he slows down Paulo Costa, he has him under control. And that is exactly what he wants. And then the real fight starts to begin, because a fight is only a fight when there is resistance. And as soon as that happens, when Israel Adesanya is able to control the bull that is Paulo Costa, then he will start to go to the body, utilize body punches, body kicks, and slow down Costa. And from there, how prepared is Paulo Costa really? How versatile is he? Because I am certain that he's not going to be trying to take down Israel Adesanya. And even if he does, he has to keep him down. And what happens then? Will he be able to submit Israel Adesanya? I highly doubt it. Because we have seen against fighters like Kelvin Gastelum who tried to take him down, they ended up getting almost submitted. So Israel Adesanya is not a fighter you should be counting out on the grappling department. And so we are left with one thing Israel Adesanya has a clear advantage in, which is the championship level experience. Facing wrestlers like Derek Brunson, former middleweight champions like Anderson Silva, Robert Whittaker, tough stylistical matchups like Kelvin Gastelum. Come fight nights, there is only one man who has to prove himself to the world to be a world-level UFC champion, and that is Paulo Costa, because Israel Adesanya has already done that. So when it comes to it, come fight nights in those 5 rounds, I am comfortable in saying that if it doesn't happen to be an early Paulo Costa knockout, I believe that Paulo Costa will have a very hard time getting control of the fight in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and the 5th round. And so if it so happens to be that Israel Adesanya is going to be winning, a knockout victory over Paulo Costa doesn't seem to be very far-fetched. I believe a body shot will be able to put down Paulo Costa, and so Israel Adesanya can win by TKO. But you can always fall back on a unanimous decision victory. But will that really happen? In time, we shall all know the truth. For now, this was only why Israel Adesanya can beat Paulo Costa. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave a like and a comment down below. As always, I have been Keenan from Keenan KTV, signing off. Later.